The scene opens up on the brutal aftermath of a battlefield, with a headless soldier still upright as blood violently spews from his severed neck into the clear blue sky. Just steps away, another warrior drops to his knees in the crimson mud, completely immobilized by an arrow piercing his spine. Beside him lies a third casualty, sprawled face down in a thick pool of blood, when suddenly a loud voice pierces through the tragedy, demanding an end to all the slacking. That sharp shout instantly grabs the attention of our boy Lucas, a young bugler who honestly loathes war and just hopes to become a musician. Glaring with pure frustration, a scarred older commander aggressively points his finger at him, barking urgent orders to signal the waiting frontline troops. Gripping his brass bugle tightly, Lucas clicks his tongue in deep annoyance, reluctantly preparing to sound the fast march to initiate the cavalry's attack. Countless corpses litter the vast, barren landscape, visually stamping the sheer scale of the massacre left behind in the year 1294. Sifting through the absolute carnage, a mercenary coldly yanks a severed head up by its hair, inspecting it for any real value. Beside him, his comrades hold up their own morbid trophies, casually dismissing the common soldiers while hoping to score a fat bounty on higher-ranking officers. But completely unbothered by the gruesome looting happening right behind him, Lucas sits quietly on the blood-soaked ground, adjusting his gear in silence. Kneeling in the mud, Lucas locks his eyes onto a discarded bugle left behind among the dead. He scoops it up with his gloved hands, noting the thick layer of blood coating the brass. Giving it a firm shake, he tries to clear the bell of whatever gore might be jammed inside. Pressing the coal metal to his lips, he takes a sharp breath and blows forcefully into the mouthpiece. A thick droplet of dark blood shoots out the other end, splashing directly onto the ground. Feeling the vibration of the clear horn, a subtle smirk creeps across his blood-smudged face. Standing tall amidst the sea of corpses, Lucas happily aims his new instrument toward the sky, absolutely thrilled with his fresh loot. High above the bustling mercenary camp, their ragged flag snaps violently in the wind. Down below, soldiers casually haul away the dead, while others exchange praises for their splendid tactics during the skirmish. The camp is fully mobilized as armed guards force captured enemy soldiers to their knees, binding their wrists tight to prepare for the march toward the papal state. Shaking in his armor, a young messenger stutters to the end of his report, absolutely terrified by the man standing in front of him. Looming over his bound captives, the heavily scarred Commander Gerhardt glares down in absolute silence, clearly plotting his next devious move. Without a shred of mercy, Gerhardt violently pins a prisoner's head back and slices deep into his forehead with a hunting knife, completely ignoring the man's agonizing screams. As the blade carves through flesh, he casually explains to the horrified messenger that this brutality is simply an advertisement for their mercenary band. Gripping the man's bleeding face with his heavy glove, he wipes away the excess gore to reveal his handiwork, declaring that he leaves his mark before letting them loose. A jagged, bloody insignia is left permanently scarred into the soldier's forehead. Released from his bindings, the terrified prisoner immediately sprints for his life across the open plains. Letting him run is all part of the plan, as Gerhardt figures a living, branded survivor will strike fear into the enemy and serve as the perfect walking billboard. With a twisted smirk plastered across his face, he forcefully yanks the next trembling captive forward by the hair, ready to carve his logo all over again. With a twisted smirk plastered across his face, he forcefully yanks the next trembling captive forward by the hair, ready to carve his logo all over again. As the knife slowly drags across the bone, the prisoner cries out to his god, begging for salvation from this absolute nightmare. But Gerhardt doesn't give a damn, adding that leaving behind a permanent physical impression is just good business. His expression darkening, he reflects on the harsh reality of their era, knowing damn well that a mercenary could easily catch a body the very next day. Because of that constant threat of death, he feels the desperate need to leave proof that he existed, even if it's through twisted trash like this. Listening to this absolute psychopath rationalize his torture, the young messenger just stands there, sweating and utterly terrified. Gerhardt suddenly stops his carving, his eyes narrowing as a loud voice abruptly calls out his name from across the camp. Catching everyone's attention, Lucas marches straight up to the group. The soldiers immediately look his way, mockingly asking if he's already bored of rummaging through corpses. Ignoring their trash talk, Lucas glares directly at the commander and aggressively demands to collect his hard-earned pay. The sudden shout stops Gerhardt dead in his tracks. Remaining in the exact same crouching position over his bleeding prisoner, the scarred commander just stops what he was doing and turns his head to look at Lucas with a heavy sigh. Rubbing the back of his neck in annoyance, he shuts the kid down instantly, reminding him that he already told him his massive debt hasn't been settled yet. Standing his ground with clenched fists, Lucas fires back, demanding to know if he seriously expects him to repay all the expenses he spent raising him. He screams that he's been playing the horn for them perfectly, demanding to know exactly how many battles it will take to wipe his slate clean. But his frustration only earns a cruel laugh from the spearman nearby, who coldly reminds him that no one gives a damn about a mere horn player. Pinning his victim back down, Gerhardt agrees with his men, bluntly telling Lucas that waddling around at a safe distance blowing a horn is child's play. He leans back, dismissing his efforts completely by stating that any idiot could play a horn compared to bleeding on the front lines. Turning his attention to the stuttering messenger boys, he mockingly asks if they happen to be horn players too. The young recruits nervously stammer, utterly intimidated by his aggressive questioning. Losing interest in the boys entirely, Gerhardt simply grunts in mild annoyance. He shifts his gaze back to Lucas, casually ordering him to blow him a tune on his new toy. He doesn't care what he plays, as long as he can prove his worth by making it obnoxiously loud. Pointing off into the distance, he challenges the boy to sound it loud enough to echo all the way to the thick patch of trees standing far across the open plains. Lucas's eyes narrow as he silently accepts the challenge, absolutely determined to prove this arrogant commander wrong. Gripping the brass tightly, he swiftly raises the bugle to his face. He parts his lips and pulls in a massive, deep breath of air. With explosive force, he blasts the bugle, sending a shockwave of deafening sound rippling through the air with enough power to physically push the wind back. The ear-splitting screech instantly forces Gerhardt and the surrounding soldiers to aggressively clamp their hands over their ears, their faces twisting in pure agony. The intense sound wave completely swallows the entire camp, leaving a thick cloud of dust kicking up in its wake. The sonic blast easily clears the plains, violently rattling the distant patch of forest trees just as requested. The sheer volume of the blast surges far beyond the camp, startling a massive flock of birds that scatter wildly into the sky above the distant tree line. Having made his point crystal clear, Lucas smoothly lowers the brass bugle from his lips, leaving the young messenger in the background completely frozen, with his hands still raised in shock. Beside him, the spearman just stares blankly forward, utterly stunned into silence with his hands firmly glued over his ringing ears. Feeling the lingering vibration, Gerhardt looks down in silence, a sharp ringing effect visibly buzzing near his face as he processes the overwhelming sound. Shifting his attention to the two trembling recruits seated right in front of him, the scarred commander casually asks if either of them think they could sound a horn anywhere near that loud. Sweating nervously under the intense pressure, the young recruit stammers, quickly admitting that he definitely couldn't pull it off. Meanwhile, the bleeding prisoner groans in pure agony as the sharp blade remains pressed dangerously close. Pressing his heavy hand back down onto his lap, Gerhardt dismisses the matter entirely and calls out Lucas's name. Turning his back slightly, Gerhardt bluntly lays out the harsh reality, explaining that leaving the mercenary corps means working his fingers to the bone. Lucas glares in silence as the commander casually dismisses even the pretense of him being able to leave. Standing firmly with his bugle in hand, the young boy listens as Gerhardt crushes his hopes, warning him not to count on that silly dream of becoming a musician. The crushing weight of those words hits him hard, leaving Lucas gritting his teeth in silent, trembling frustration. Cursing his frustrating reality, Lucas snaps his head back with a sharp, sudden turn, letting out a loud shout. As he stands there, a passing soldier in the background happens to catch a glimpse of the boy's head. The soldier's eyes immediately widen, breaking into a cold sweat in absolute shock at what he's seeing. From behind, Lucas simply stands in silence, completely used to the sudden stares. Sticking directly out of the boy's hair is a strange, jagged wooden object, leaving the onlooker utterly baffled as he stutters to himself, questioning if it was a horn or actually a branch. Sweating nervously, the panicked soldier rushes to report the anomaly to his commander. But Gerhardt barely looks up from his blade, casually dismissing the horn like it's nothing before moving right on to his next task.